The year was 1750, and the American frontier was a place of jagged peaks, whispering forests, and shadows that stretched longer than the mind could comprehend. Long before the concrete jungles of New York or the bright lights of Los Angeles was the Appalachian wilderness. To the early settlers, this was a land of promise, but to those who dared to venture too deep into the limestone caves and misty valleys, it was a land of ancient terror. History books tell us about the brave pioneers and the struggle for independence, but they conveniently leave out the most disturbing discoveries made by the early surveyors. Imagine walking through a forest where the trees feel like blades of grass and coming across a structure so massive it defies the physics of the 18th century. We are told that the first people here were nomadic tribes and eventually European settlers, but deep within the soil of the Ohio Valley and the Appalachian Range, something else was waiting to be found. Imagine a cold October morning in the mid-1700s. A small party of colonial surveyors is mapping out the western edge of the Virginia colony. They are looking for fertile land, but what they find instead is a mound of earth that looks far too symmetrical to be natural. Armed with primitive shovels and driven by curiosity, they begin to dig. What they expect to find are flint arrowheads or perhaps pottery. What they actually uncover is a femur bone that is longer than a grown man's entire leg. This isn't a myth or a fireside story meant to scare children. This is the documented reality found in the private journals of early American explorers. They described skeletons reaching 9, 10, and even 12 feet in height. These beings were not just tall humans, they were something else entirely. Their jawbones were so large they could fit over the face of a modern man like a mask, and many were reported to have double rows of teeth, a biological anomaly that points to a different branch of evolution. The mystery deepens when we look at the architecture of the era that simply doesn't match the people living in it. We've been conditioned to believe that the settlers built everything from scratch with rough-hewn logs, but colonial records often mention finding ruins already present in the deep woods. Massive stone walls made of blocks weighing several tons, fitted together with such precision that not even a knife blade could pass between them. The settlers didn't build these, they found them. Why would a primitive tribe or a group of exhausted pioneers build a doorway 15 feet high? The official explanation is always the same. It was for aesthetic greatness or ceremonial purposes. But when you are struggling to survive in a harsh wilderness, you don't waste energy building doors for giants unless those giants were the actual ones who lived there. By the mid-1700s, the British Crown was secretly obsessed with these findings. There are whispers of hidden shipments being sent back to London, crates filled with massive skulls and strange metallic artifacts that didn't match the technology of the time. Think about the implications. If a race of titans ruled the American continent just centuries before the Industrial Revolution, why was it scrubbed from our records? The answer lies in the 1750 secret. As the colonies began to form a collective identity, the powers that be realized that the existence of a superior, ancient race would undermine the narrative of manifest destiny. If the land was already occupied by a civilization far more advanced and physically dominant than our own, the story of the New World falls apart. The deeper you go into the Appalachian caves, the more the evidence screams for attention. Local legends among the indigenous people speak of the stiff-legged people, or the white giants, who were already there when the tribes arrived. These were not gods, they were physical beings who hunted, built, and eventually fought a losing war against a changing world. In 1752, a French explorer allegedly stumbled upon a cave in what is now West Virginia that contained hundreds of these giants, preserved in a state of mummification.
He described them as wearing copper armor and holding weapons that no ordinary man could lift. Yet when he returned with a larger party months later, the entrance was sealed, and the location was struck from the official maps. This is where the math starts to get frightening. If you look at the energy required to move the stones used in these ancient Appalachian mounds, it far exceeds the caloric capability of a standard human workforce of that era. You would need creatures with 3 times the muscle density and double the height to perform these tasks efficiently. We are living on top of a giant's playground, walking through valleys that were once their highways and peering into caves that were once their homes. The 1750 discovery wasn't just about bones, it was about the realization that humanity is not the first, nor perhaps the most impressive species to claim this land. As we look at the modern world, we see the remnants of this cleaning process. The Smithsonian Institution has been accused for decades of losing giant skeletons that were sent to them by early American farmers. Why the cover-up? Because acknowledging the giants means acknowledging that our version of history is a carefully constructed lie. It means admitting that the pioneers were actually scavengers moving into the ruins of a fallen empire. Those massive stone steps you see in old colonial-era basements or the oversized fireplaces in abandoned mountain cabins aren't just quirks of architecture. They are the ergonomic necessities of the people who were here before us. The transition from the 1700s to the modern era required a total reset of the human mind. We were taught to look at the ground, to focus on the small details, and to ignore the cyclopean scale of the world around us. But the blood doesn't forget. Even today, people born in the Appalachian region sometimes exhibit physical traits that reflect this ancient lineage: extreme height, incredible strength, and a strange, innate connection to the deep mountains. It's a genetic echo of a time when the peaks belonged to the Titans. Next time you drive through the winding roads of the American East, look at the cliffs. Notice the way certain rock formations look suspiciously like weathered walls. Consider the fact that the natural caves might actually be ancient tunnels designed for someone twice your size. The secret of 1750 is still there, hidden under layers of soil and centuries of silence. The giants didn't just disappear into myths, they were buried under the weight of a new civilization that was too afraid to admit it wasn't alone. We are the second tenants of America, living in a house that was built for someone much, much larger. And as the soil erodes and the truth leaks out, we are forced to ask, if they were so powerful, what exactly happened to them? And could it happen to us too? The race of giants wasn't a fairy tale told by our ancestors. It was a documented physical reality that was systematically erased to protect the ego of modern man. From the massive copper mines of Lake Superior to the limestone fortresses of the South, the evidence is undeniable for those who have the courage to see. History isn't a straight line, it's a series of peaks and valleys, and we are currently living in the valley, oblivious to the giants who once stood on the peaks. The 1750 secret is still there, hidden under layers of soil and centuries of silence. The giants didn't just disappear into myths, they were buried under the weight of a new civilization that was too afraid to admit it wasn't alone. Some things were never meant to be found, but once you see the truth, you can never go back to the lie. Subscribe for more hidden history that they don't want you to know.